Greetings, dear teachers! We at CWC are excited to start this learning journey yet again with you all. Therein, the District Institute of Education and Training, Shivamogga, in collaboration with Caring with Color, a Mansi Kirloskar initiative, pulls forward with the District Education Transformation Program of 2025 and 26. Today, we will be dealing with the second English module on total physical response.
The teacher handbook, which contains the chapters assigned for each month according to the TSCRT curriculum calendar, along with the resources, is available on Teachopia for all the chapters of grades 4 to 7 in the form of lesson plans, worksheets, PBLs, and explainer videos for all teachers to make use of during the upcoming academic year. The academic year is divided into 7 months. Each month is dedicated to one methodology of executing an activity. We will be guiding the teachers while they design activities using the approaches. Let us take a look at the August month's approaches, keeping FLN requirements in mind. Total physical response, or also termed as TPR in short. Students learn language by responding physically to commands, associating words directly with actions without explicit verbal practice initially. Example, a teacher says stand up and students stand up. Touch your nose and students touch their nose. Welcome to this session on total physical response, where when the body acts, the brain remembers. Let's pause and reflect on this idea. Babies don't learn language by memorizing words or lists. They learn naturally by listening, observing, and responding with actions. This same principle applies to children and even adults. When learning a new language, memorization alone is not an effective approach. Instead, we link language to physical movement, and learning becomes more natural and meaningful. This is exactly what we call total physical response or TPR. First, it focuses on teaching a language through action. Second, it connects listening to physical activities so learners act out what they hear. And third, it is designed to reinforce comprehension, helping learners understand and remember better. For example, if I say stand up and students stand, the language becomes alive for them. They are not just hearing, they are experiencing. That's the power of total physical response.
A little more about total physical response. It was started by Dr. James J. Asher. He's the one who created this particular approach called total physical response. It is based upon the way learners learn their mother tongue. Teachers have language body conversations with their learners. This way, the teacher instructs and the learner physically responds to the instruction. Total physical response attempts to mirror this effect in the language. Total physical response or TPR has certain particular characteristics such as the following. One is clear commands and demonstration. Language is introduced through action-based instructions. Second, kinesthetic and experiential learning. Here, learning is physical, hands-on, and immersive. Next, immediate feedback through movement. Here, understanding is shown in real time through body response. Here, we see how foundational literacy is linked with total physical response through three main foundational blocks: phonemic awareness, vocabulary building, and reading comprehension. Further, we see that each foundational block is categorized under various activities. For example, with phonemic awareness, clapping syllables and jumping when hearing a rhyming word
can be used as TPR activities to help build learning and comprehension. With vocabulary building, acting out words, or using hand gestures for letters can be used to build vocabulary. Reading comprehension. Here, role playing for story characters and using gestures to represent keywords can be used to build reading.
Now we see how TPR is linked to foundational literacy through a simple activity. It is an activity that captures a lively scene where the teacher leads and students enthusiastically act out words, pointing, reaching out, moving around the classroom in sync with the rhyme. It is all about joyful learning in motion. So, in brief, TPR connects physical engagement plus language and it boosts listening, quick thinking, and collaboration skills. Foundational literacy connects the reading, writing, and comprehension under TPR, which builds critical thinking, communication, and lifelong learning abilities. Together, they align with NEP goals and prepare students for the 4 C's of the 21st century learning. In this module, we will focus on two grammar concepts, nouns and articles. Together, we will explore the basics of these concepts through engaging explanations and activities. You will also see how these concepts can be applied in classrooms across different grades. In addition, we will understand how total physical response or TPR connects with foundational literacy and supports the development of 21st century skills demonstrated through practical classroom activities.
Let's learn about articles. A, an, and the. Here are a few sentences. Let's read them together. This is a pencil. The pencil is broken. I ate an apple. We use the words a, an, and the before the nouns pencil and apple. But why? A, an, and the are words we use before some types of nouns. We use a before a singular noun that begins with a consonant. For example, a cat, a hat, a chair, a house. We can say, this is a cat. We put his bag on a chair. We use an before a singular noun that starts with a vowel. For example, an apple, an umbrella, an egg, an ice cube. For example, I am eating an apple, or I bought an umbrella. So, when do we use the word the? Let's read these sentences where the is used. The apples are really tasty. The teacher is in the classroom. We use the before a particular singular or plural noun. What does this mean? This means that when the person who is speaking and the person who is listening both know the noun that is spoken about, the is used before the noun. For example, I will give you the book, or where is the teacher? Here, both the speaker and listener of the sentence know which book and which teacher they are talking about. Here are more examples. Where is the cat? The teacher is in the class. My bag is in the classroom. So, let's review. We use a before a singular noun that begins with a consonant. We use an before a singular noun that starts with a vowel. We use the before a particular singular or plural noun like the teacher, the books, the chalk. Hello friends! Today we are going on a fun journey to discover nouns. My name is Nauni. I will help you understand what nouns are. Nouns are the building blocks of sentences and help us talk about people, places, things, and ideas. So, let's begin. Nouns are words that name things we can see, touch, hear, or imagine. Let us look around and see if we can spot some nouns. That is a tree. Yes, the tree is a noun. That is a cat. Yes, the word cat is a noun. Can you see any more nouns? Yes, the word boy is also a noun. Now there are different types of nouns. Let's discover them together. The first type of noun is common noun. Common nouns are general names for people, animals, and things like boy, girl, dog, or flower. For example, when we say school, we are talking about a common place and not specifying the name of the school. The word children is also a common noun. When we say the children are playing in the park, we are talking about a group of children, not naming any girl or boy in particular. The next type of noun is a proper noun. Proper nouns are specific names for particular people and things. Words like the name of people, like Sujata and Varun, are proper nouns. Similarly, words like India, Mysore, and Karnataka are also proper nouns. My name is Nauni. The word Nauni is also a proper noun.
Hi,
Hello. What is your name?
my name is Chimpu.
Nice to meet you, Chimpu. The word Chimpu is also a proper noun. Can you find a proper noun here?
Is it the word Kaveri River?
Yes, the word Kaveri is a proper noun because it's the specific name of this beautiful river in Karnataka. The next type of noun is collective noun. These are words for groups of nouns or a group of things. For example, look at these birds that are flying together. They are called a flock of birds. Can you see many cows together? They are a herd of cows. And can you see all these monkeys on the trees? They are a troop of monkeys. So the words flock, herd, and troop are all collective nouns. Now, can you help me identify the nouns in these sentences? The child is playing with a ball. Now tell me, what are the nouns in this sentence? Very good. Child and ball is the correct answer. Now, we can see Preeti loves eating samosas. Very good. Here, Preeti is the name of the girl and samosas is the thing she is eating. The birds are flying in the sky. Excellent! Here, the nouns are birds and sky. You have done a wonderful job here. Now, let us see how to use nouns in sentences. Remember, a sentence must have a noun and a verb. Here are some examples of nouns: book, boy, dog. Now, can you make sentences using these words? Maya reads a book. The boy runs. The dog barks. Well done. Now let us do a quick recap of what we have learned about nouns today. Nouns are words that name people, places, things, and ideas. There are different types of nouns. Proper nouns, these are specific names of people, animals, and things, like the words Nauni, Sujata, and Varun. The next is common nouns. These are general names for people, animals, and things, like school, boy, and girl. The next we saw collective nouns. These are words for groups of nouns or things, like flock of birds, herd of cows, troop of monkeys. Good job, everyone. Now you can use nouns every day. Goodbye, everybody.
On this slide, we see some activity ideas for different grades designed to teach nouns and articles through total physical response. For grade 4, we start simple with touch, point, and act, where children physically point to or touch objects and act them out to recognize nouns. In grade 5, we have two activities. The first is run to the article, where students run to the correct article, a, an, or the, placed in different corners of the room. The second is noun action corners, where different corners represent types of nouns and children move and act them out. For grade 6, the activity is act the articles. Students dramatize the use of a, an, or the in different sentences, making grammar both interactive and memorable. Finally, in grade 7, we challenge them with the noun zone challenge. This involves team-based tasks where students categorize, use, and create sentences with nouns, applying their knowledge at a higher level. Each of these activities link grammar learning with movement, fun, and collaboration, while also building 21st century skills like critical thinking, teamwork, and communication.
Right. Now, let's begin with our first activity for grade 4. This activity is called Touch, Point, and Act. Let's go over the learning objectives for this activity. At the lower level or at the primary level, we want learners to identify and use the correct article a, an, and the before a noun. We want them to respond physically to oral instructions involving articles. At a higher level, we want learners to apply correct articles in spoken and written language, analyze the usage of differences in context, for example, a book versus an apple or the moon. We want them to create simple sentences using appropriate articles, and we want them to collaborate in group total physical response games to internalize grammar rules that they have learned. Let's look at the pedagogical strategies used in this activity. Multisensory learning. This means that this activity uses hearing, which is commands, seeing using objects, and moving with actions. Scaffolding. Here we start with simple a and rules and then introduce the with uniqueness. Peer collaboration. Here learners will perform a group relay which builds teamwork, and peer connection. Repetition with variation. This ensures retention of grammar rules. And finally, we will also use real life application, which means we will be using real life objects for creating concrete learning concepts. The learning outcome that we want to achieve by the end of this activity is that students will be able to recognize and distinguish a, an, and the in the sentences. They will be able to apply TPR based physical response movements to single correct article usage. They will be able to use articles correctly in oral and written sentences. And they will be able to demonstrate an understanding through a TPR sorting game and sentence building task. Let's look at the action commands. Here we will start with a warm up. In the warm up, the teacher will mention a noun and the students will jump or squat based on the article used before the noun. For example, when the teacher says a pencil, students can stand. An orange, students can clap. The sun, students can spin. And an umbrella, they can spin twice. The materials required for this particular activity can be picture cards or real classroom objects. Now, let's get into the core activity. Here, we will spread objects around the room. For example, an apple, an umbrella, a ball, egg, sun, or moon. These can also be picture cards. Then the teacher will say a sentence like, touch an umbrella or point to the sun. Students must touch, point, or act based on the correct article. Now, we will move on to a group activity. Here, we will divide students into teams. Each team will pick an object and say a sentence using the correct article they have learned. Then they will act out the sentence. Let's go over some foundational literacy resources that we can use when we are doing this activity in the class. We can use flashcards, which are visual. We can use them to communicate or mention nouns with images to practice a, an, and the. We can use article maths, which are kinesthetic in nature. Here these are flow maths. These are flow maths labeled a, an, and the for standing responses. We can use FLN worksheets, which are print, and they can be activities in the worksheet, such as fill in the blanks or picture-based article tasks. Finally, we can also implement a digital quiz, which is interactive in nature. Here, the digital quiz can be Google Forms, or it can be created in apps like Quizzes for simple assessment of learners. Now, how can we assess our learners once they have completed this activity based on their understanding of the concept? We can use an activity such as act and write. Here, the students pick a picture card from a box. They act it out and say a sentence using the correct article. Then they write the sentence in their notebook. To assess learners, we can use these particular rubrics. The criteria that we will be assessing them on is the correct use of articles, sentence formation, TPR response and accuracy, oral fluency, and engagement in the activity.
Let's move on to grade 5, run to the article. Here, the learning objectives are as follows. At the primary level, we expect the learners to recognize and use appropriate articles before nouns, respond to oral commands by identifying article-noun pairings. At the higher level, the objectives would be apply article rules in speaking and writing, differentiate between indefinite, that is a, an, and definite, the articles in context, compose meaningful sentences using articles, and collaborate and reflect during interactive grammar games. The pedagogical strategies are as follows. Total physical response promotes movement-based learning and retention. Collaborative grammar games encourage teamwork and oral language use. Visual auditory kinesthetic input supports all learning styles. Scaffolding starts from recognition to production and then reasoning. Questioning strategy, why did you say an apple, promotes metacognition. So these are a few pedagogical strategies. At the end of this particular activity, the learners will identify and classify article-noun combination accurately, use a, an, and the correctly in structured and open-ended sentences, demonstrate understanding through physical TPR responses, participate actively in grammar-based language games. The action commands for this particular activity for grade 5 are as follows. The teacher sets up a classroom by labeling 3 corners of the room A, and the. She then prepares flashcards with nouns, example, apple, sun, ball, egg, pencil. Next, the teacher shows a flashcard and says the noun aloud. For example, the teacher calls out the noun apple. Learners must run or jump to the corner or the correct article corner, and in this case, it is an. If learners are correct, they act out the object. For example, they pretend to eat an apple. There can be a variation where time limit or group challenges can be encouraged. The foundational literacy resources are as follows. Flashcards are the visual type which can be used for article-noun matching. Object props which are tactile and can use real or paper objects to be more realistic. Floor labels, which is the kinesthetic type, it facilitates movement-based responses. Sentence strips, which is the language type, is used to fill in the blank article tasks. Worksheets are for assessment, which is picture-based article writing. And audio prompts, which is the auditory type, is used to listen and respond with movements. The assessment activity for this particular grade can be act and answer challenge. So the teacher can show a picture card, for example, umbrella. She can then ask learners to say a sentence, for example, this is an umbrella, and also act it out. The learners can write the sentence in their notebooks. As an option, we can use peer checking for article accuracy and sentence formation. Here we have the rubrics that will help us assess students' perform. We are focusing on 5 key criteria: article usage, sentence clarity, physical response accuracy, oral explanation, and participation and teamwork. Each of this is rated on a 4-point scale. A score of 4 means excellent, and where the student performs consistently and confidently. 3 is good, 2 is satisfactory, and 1 needs improvement. This rubric is designed to provide a balanced view of both language accuracy and student participation, ensuring we are not only focusing on grammar, but also on confidence, interaction, and learning through actions. Moving on to grade 5 activity, noun action corners. Here are the learning objectives. At the primary level, we expect the learners to identify nouns in spoken and written language, respond physically to oral prompts involving nouns. At the higher level, we Expect the learners to differentiate between common and proper nouns through action, classify nouns into people, places, animals, and things, construct sentences using nouns in context, reflect on the use of nouns in real-life language situations. The strategies included are multisensory approach, where hearing, that is listening to nouns, movement through physical response, and seeing the flashcards constitutes this approach. TPR, kinesthetic engagement, increases memory retention. Categorization and reasoning encourage higher order thinking. Peer explanation builds metacognitive skills. Differentiation, visual and verbal supports helps diverse learners. Learning outcome: by the end of this activity, learners will identify and act out nouns when heard in sentences, classify given nouns into categories using physical movement, use nouns in context both orally and in writing, participate in a collaborative movement-based game with confidence. Now, how do we play this activity? The teacher sets up 4 corners of the classroom with labels: people, places, animals, and things. She then prepares 20 to 30 noun flashcards, a mix of proper and common nouns. The teacher reads a word or sentence aloud from the flashcard prepared. Learners must listen, identify the noun, and run to the correct corner. For proper nouns, learners will stand still and salute. After the movement, a few learners explain their choice. A variation can be added where music can be added in a fast-paced challenged game. The foundational literacy resources includes noun flashcards, which is the visual type used for picture words of people, places, animals, and things. Corner labels, which is the kinesthetic type, helps to guide movement-based responses. Noun chart, which is the visual audio type, shows examples of common and proper nouns. Sentence slips, which are the contextual type, helps to read aloud prompts for noun identification. FLN worksheet, which is the writing type, is used as sentence-based noun identification tasks. The assessment activity for this particular grade is pick, act, write. Each student picks a noun card from a box. They act out the noun, like for example, they flap their arms for a bird. They say a sentence using that noun, write the sentence in their notebook. The rubrics included are noun identification, classification, acting or the TPR engagement, sentence formation, oral explanation of choice.
Let's look at the grade 6 activity called Act on the Articles. At the primary level, we want learners to identify articles, which is a, an, and the, in spoken and written language. We want them to use appropriate articles orally before a noun, and we want them to respond to oral prompts using movement. At the higher level, we want learners to distinguish between indefinite, which is a and an, and definite, which is the articles, with explanation. We want them to apply rules of article usage in various contexts, which is oral and written. We want them to construct grammatically correct sentences with article-noun agreement. And we also want them to analyze when and why a specific article is used. This activity uses pedagogical strategies like TPR engagement. Here, students move to response, reinforcing memory and focus. We will use multisensory learning, which is combining hearing, that is using audio prompts, and seeing using flashcards, and movement using action. Scaffolding, which is to begin with examples, then shift to student-led participation. Then we will use questioning, which encourages explanation of choices to promote metacognition. And then peer interaction, which is small group article challenges for practice. Here, we want learners at the end of the session to use a, an, and the correctly in spoken and written forms. We want them to respond physically to article cues in context. We want them to apply article rules to construct meaningful sentences. And we want them to reflect on article usage across sentence types and in different texts. How do we do this activity? First, let's set up 3 corners or spots in the classroom as a, an, and the corners. Then we will prepare flashcards with nouns and we will prepare article plus noun prompts. Here the teacher will show an article and noun phrase, and when students hear it, they must run or jump to the correct article corner and then act out or mime the noun when they get there. Once they get there, the teacher pauses and asks, "Why did you choose this article?" to encourage the learners to explain and reflect on their choice. For this activity, we can use a few foundational literacy resources such as article noun flashcards, which are visual in nature, and they will be used for TPR identification and sentence formation. We can use article maths, which provide kinesthetic skills where students move and stand on correct articles. We can use sentence strip cards, which are reading and grammar oriented, such as fill in the blank with correct articles type of strips. We can use writing sheets, which help learners apply what they have learned, where they can write 3 to 5 sentence paragraphs using a, an, and the articles. We can use peer cards, which are interactive in nature, where students read aloud and the peers correct them on their usage. We can assess if learners have understood the concepts using an activity called Pick, Act, Write, and Explain. Here, each student picks a noun from a box. They choose the correct article for it. They act it out, for example, picking owl, and they act an owl using their hands and flapping their wings. Then they say a sentence with the noun and article. Then they write the sentence in their notebook and then they explain why they chose that sentence. Here we have the rubrics that help us assess student performance in this module. The correct criteria used for this is article choice accuracy, oral sentence formation, movement and response, written sentence accuracy, and explanation of choice.
Now we move on to the grade 7 activity, Noun Zone Challenge. The learning objectives at the primary level are the students have to identify and recognize nouns in spoken and written language. They have to learn to classify nouns under people, places, animals, and things. Whereas at the higher level, learners are expected to differentiate between common, proper, abstract, collective, and concrete nouns. They have to know to apply noun classification rules in sentence construction, use reasoning to explain their choice of noun type in context, and reflect on noun usage in different language and writing. The strategies used are total physical response, which are multisensory and movement-based learning, which enhances retention. Collaborative learning, group and peer-based activities for noun types are used. Higher order thinking skills or higher order thinking encourages reasoning and justification. Gradual complexity starts with recognition, moves to application, and then leads to explanation. Language across contexts connects grammar to real life language usage. At the end of this activity, the learning outcomes expected are students will be able to identify and classify nouns by category and type, use different types of nouns in structured and self-created sentences, respond to oral prompts using movement and gestures, explain their classification and usage of nouns in different contexts. How do we play this activity? The teacher has to set up 5 zones in the classroom and label them as people, places, animal, and things. Under things, we have concrete and collective, and the 5th zone would be abstract nouns. Then the teacher says a noun or a sentence aloud. Students or learners run to the correct zone based on the noun type. They act out or gesture a related movement. The students are asked to explain why did they choose this zone, or is it a proper noun or an abstract noun. As an extension, students can create new sentences using nouns they have acted out. The foundational literacy resources are as follows. Noun flashcards, which are visual, and the purpose of these flashcards are to identify and sort nouns. Sentence prompt cards, which is the oral and reading type, is helpful to hear and apply noun knowledge. Corner labels or zone posters, the kinesthetic type, helps in movement and classification. Group task sheets are a collaborative way to sort nouns and write in groups. Writing sheets, which is an application based, helps the students to construct sentences using various noun types. Assessment activity for this particular grade would be pick, explain, and perform. Each student picks a noun card from a box. They must identify the type of noun. For example, the word truth is identified as an abstract noun. They act it out, where truth is shown by a gesture where students place hand on their heart. Say a sentence using that noun. Write the sentence in their notebook and explain why it belongs to that noun category. To assess this activity, here are a few rubrics. The criteria is as follows: noun identification, classification, reasoning, TPR engagement, sentence construction, and written explanation. Now we have come to the Q&A session. This is your opportunity to ask questions, share reflections, or even suggest how these activities might have helped or worked in your own classrooms, teachers. Remember, no question is too small, whether it is about total physical response, foundational literacy, or linking activities to 21st century skills. Feel free to raise it. So let's make this interaction just like we encourage our learners. Your curiosity and participation will help us explore deeper. As we come to the end of this session, I would like to sincerely thank you all for your active participation and enthusiasm. Just as the image here shows a teacher and students sharing gratitude, this reflects the spirit of our learning community. Teaching and learning are most meaningful when we work together, respect each other's ideas, and grow together. I hope today's session has given you practical strategies, fresh insights, and inspiration to bring into your classrooms. Thank you once again for your time, energy, and commitment to nurturing young learners. Let us continue to support each other and keep the joy of learning alive.